Dontaesboxingnation, Dontaescookingnation. We are out here. Where are we at?
We're out here in Bangkok.
There you go. She's from Ireland. Matter of fact, introduce yourself to the world.
My name's Haney and I'm from Ireland and I'm the biggest fan of this cooking show.
You hear that?
Yeah.
Biggest fan?
And I'm from Ireland. Sorry.
No, I can edit it. Don't worry about it. All the way in Bangkok, Thailand, y'all.
No,
I'm gonna get
in
it right.
Ireland as well.
In Ireland, you hear that? DBN is international,
My
guys.
churros are ready now.
Dontaesboxingnation, what's going on, guys? So after George Kambosos came out and announced that he's activating his rematch clause, Devin Haney did a new interview since that George Kambosos announcement, and he pretty much ignored and disregarded what George Kambosos said when it came to that rematch clause. When Devin did this interview with the $1 Million Game podcast, he made it clear once again, and this is like the third time he said it already. He made it very clear that he wants Lomachenko and Gervonta Tank Davis. Now, I gotta tell you guys, when boxers do these type of interviews with these podcast shows, like these variety podcast shows or maybe hip hop, whatever it is, whatever they focus on outside of boxing, I usually don't even watch those kind of interviews because 99% of the people doing the interviews are extreme casual boxing fans. They usually know nothing about boxing, but they'll have a boxer come onto their show and will talk to them for like 1 or 2 hours talking about absolutely nothing, at least nothing that has anything to do with what's going on in the sport. So I got to give credit to my man Aki, who represents New Media as well, because he told me to watch this before or listen to it, and I didn't listen to it. But then when he told me the second time, he said, hey man, you should listen to it because they made a couple of good points on the show. And it turns out he was right. So Devin Haney, he did this interview on the podcast called $1 Million Game. And even though I would say the 20% of the show where they did talk about boxing, the one guy on the show, he was making sense when he was talking to Devin Haney. He clearly didn't have this agenda where he was trying to please old media. He was saying things that were actually true, or at least just addressing certain things that didn't make sense, that didn't logically add up in the sport of boxing. So I want to go ahead and play this clip of, once again, what Devin Haney said when he was asked who's on his list when it comes to the next guy that he wants to fight. And this is what Devin Haney said. I'm going to go ahead and play the clip, and then I want you to pay attention to what the guy who's interviewing Devin Haney says as well. Check it out. Okay, guys, so you heard Devin Haney talking about who he wanted to fight next. Once again, he said he wanted to fight Lomachenko. He said he wanted to fight Tank Davis. He never even mentioned a George Kambosos rematch, which means there's a very good chance there were some kind of loopholes in the contract when it comes to that rematch with Kambosos. I'm not saying this means it's never going to happen, but there's a possibility that we might see Devin Haney fight someone else before he ends up fighting George. Now, some other stuff that they talked about in that piece right there, they talked about the pound for pound list. You heard the one guy that was talking to Devin Haney, he was talking about the inconsistencies of basically old media's pound for pound list. The one guy on the show that was asking Devin Haney questions, he was even using some New Media talking points. When he talked about Chocolatito, he talked about how as soon as they said that he was pound for pound the best fighter in the world, he went to sleep like shortly after they said that. And this goes back to me telling you guys that as soon as old media says a certain fighter who's on the hope list is pound for pound the best fighter in the world, that fighter becomes cursed. They end up losing shortly after old media crowns them as quote unquote the best fighter in the world. We've seen this happen to Lomachenko. We've seen this happen to Roman Gonzalez. We've seen it happen to Gennady Golovkin. And most recently, we've seen it happen to Canelo Alvarez. Now, this guy, he did a good job of setting up the pitch for Devin Haney to knock the ball out of the park by saying to him, you know, could it be these guys that are coming up with this list don't know what they're talking about? And Devin Haney, he said, look, the list is opinionated. Everyone has a different list. But what Devin Haney should have said is, the majority of these lists are not pound for pound lists. These are a list of who their favorite fighters are. You cannot take what they say serious because that's not a pound for pound list. That's a popularity list. And this is what all of these fighters should be saying, at least the ones that continuously get disrespected by ESPN and the rest of old media. You can't just call it their opinion when we see a consistent pattern of double standards. That's not what you call an opinion. That's what you call an agenda. And this is what, once again, all of these black fighters should be calling it, because that is exactly what it is. It is the old media agenda. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one. Let me tell you guys about Issa Israel Law Firm. It is a full-service legal practice based in Denver, Colorado, an emerging hub for combat sports and high-altitude training. If you're a fighter inside or outside of the ring and you need a law firm you can trust to fight for you, visit thefighterfirm.com or email help@iilawfirm.com. Legal representation is usually limited to plaintiffs or defendants in Colorado, but iFirm can help anyone in the world with trademarking their business name, logos, and U.S. immigration issues. This brother has been my attorney for a while and helped guide me through all kinds of business and civil issues, so make sure you guys go to thefighterfirm.com.
How has this changed your life, man?
It's going good. It's going good. I feel younger. I look younger. Picking up the younger girls. I just can't scratch that, but it's been good. It's been good. I like the look. I like the feel. I feel more confident now. It was money well spent, I should say.
Now, in terms of the response, what has been people said, like, as people being like, hey, what do you have on your head, or things like that sort?
The most response I get is like, yo, what barber you go to? Or they get, such a close shave with, everything lined up so sharp and everything. And, then I go into explaining to them the procedure, what I had done and everything. They all was like, I would never done if you didn't.
Fellas, I've got some great news for you. If you've lost your hair or have a receding hairline, the time has come when you can finally get your hairline back through a process called scalp micropigmentation. So here's how it works. It's a hair tattoo that replicates the look of your hair follicles when you have fully shaved it down. So to get this hookup, make sure you follow and contact my man ScalpCarolinas on Instagram. All right, now check this out, guys. If you're looking to repair eczema scars, burns and bruises, dark spots and blemishes, then this right here is the perfect product for you guys. It's called Elo de Key Face and Body Oil. Athletes and top-ranking boxers, they're also using it after training to reduce swelling, inflammation, and to ease the pain. So get yours today. Go to elodekey.com, like them on Facebook, and follow them on Instagram.